Hey guys, welcome back to the Seven Figure Sellers Summit. My name is Gary Huang. Today, I'm super excited. We are at day 5. It's going to be all about exits, structuring your business to sell it. And I am thrilled to have Josh Dittrich with us. How's it going, Josh? Welcome.
Gary, again, nice to see you.
Yes, great to see you. And Josh, before we get started, just a quick intro. Josh is a 8-figure seller, and he exited not one but 2 of his e-commerce and Amazon businesses. So if you didn't check out his session earlier today, please check it out. And he's also a returning alumni speaker at the summit. He literally wrote the book about exits, about how he was able to build, scale, and exit his businesses for 8 figures. And he came out with a really cool book, Aggregator, Navigator. It's literally the playbook for selling your Amazon business, from an 8-figure seller who's actually done it. So super excited to have you on, Josh. So
Cool.
can you tell
Thanks.
us where are you joining us from, and can you give us a quick intro?
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Gary. Yeah, I'm joining you guys from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I have 5 kids and 3 dogs in the background, so if you hear it, that's just every day in the life here. But glad to be on and talk about the path to basically planning and eventually exiting. And our specialty comes into just really being a group that has started and exited. Our real forte is the entire process. And so happy to answer any questions, and those that are looking to prepare to sell or hoping to sell or maybe even grow before they sell.
Excellent. And I wanted to also, thanks for that, and we'll get into the Q&A. So this is a valuable opportunity for those of you guys that are joining us live to ask your questions directly to a 8-figure seller who's done it. All right. So meanwhile, just to set the theme of the summit, as you guys know, 2022 is all like a wild west in e-commerce. On one hand, you have this golden opportunity. E-commerce is expected to generate $1 trillion in sales in 2022, and it's actually growing faster than expected. Experts thought we wouldn't hit 1 trillion until 2024. So, I mean, the opportunity is definitely here, as well as exits, right? People like Josh, like the select few, I think they're like the 0.001% of the sellers that are able to successfully, go through the exit. I think it's a valuable opportunity. It could be life-changing, as Josh will get into in a little bit. But on the other hand, just like in the Wild West, there's a lot of potential pitfalls that could drag your business down, right? I mean, we're dealing with the continuing supply chain perfect storm, the high shipping fees, the delays on the port, increased Amazon PPC, increased Amazon fees, increased cost of goods, you name it, right? So that's why I think, right now there is a golden opportunity, but things are changing so quickly, right? So before we get started, I also would like to quickly say a special thank you to Thrasio. Thrasio is our platinum sponsor, and they're one of the most well-known aggregators out there. So if you guys are considering exiting your business, I highly recommend that you check out Thrasio, and they were kind enough to offer a free business valuation to any seller. So literally you can find out ballpark, where you're at, maybe you're not ready yet, and maybe you'll be surprised, right? So I think that's a great way for sellers to do some research and get more well acquainted. And then I'm just going to drop that link in the chat for people that are interested. Definitely check out Thrasio. They're offering a free business valuation at the link in the chat. All right. Meanwhile, let's for those of you guys joining us live, if you could type your name and where you're joining us from. So I see we have several people joining us already. So we have Ben from San Mateo, and we have Joshua Smith from Queensland, Australia. Good day. So great to have you guys. All right. So Josh, to get things started, let's I'd love to learn more about how life looks for you right now, because some people say you're living the dream, man. I mean, you built up the business, scaled to 8 figures, you exited. Can you give us a glimpse of what's your life like right now, and are you living the dream? From a real seller who exited, please tell us.
It's the most complicated question and answer ever. You think only when I have fill in the blank X millions of dollars in the bank. Okay. And then check the box mentally. And then you look in your bank and you actually have the millions and you go, well, nothing's really changed. I'm the same guy, except, I looked forward to going to work and building something, but now I have to start something or get into something that I look forward to getting up and going after again. Right. So like the last 9 months, Gary, after I sold was very tough. It was the battle within between being a home and a good father and a good husband, but also now getting into other business opportunities, investing, advising. I'm working more hours than the last 2 years while I was running the business. So
Well,
back to startup mode, back to, but 6 months ago, my wife was very concerned that I was home too much, right? That I should have, go to an office or go do something. And so where's the happy medium? And right now it's hard, but it's exciting because the view of life and the way I look at what I'm doing now in terms of helping sellers, kind of it brings this level of confidence around what you originally never imagined to something you've actually done to now being able to help others, right? To achieve this, quote unquote success mark. But I don't measure success by the money in the bank. I think there's still gifts and talents that I can be using. And that's the way we look at it. Like I had lunch with a billionaire yesterday. And there's a number of folks I've connected with over the years that really do well. And they don't need to be working, right? So the question is just, what is your purpose? And so that is a more realization I've had around like the purpose of work as a means to an end or an end to a means, right? So that's where my head's at, Gary.
excellent, excellent. Thanks for that real life snapshot. So, I mean, after the end game, after the exit, it's not like just a bed of roses, right? I mean, Josh is still working more hours now, and his wife was saying, 6 months ago, maybe you're at home too much, right? So you gotta look at what's next, right? You
Yeah.
gotta, identify your gifts, your talents, your mission, and maybe it's helping other sellers, maybe it's getting back on the horse, right? I mean, there's a lot of different options that we've seen the different sellers do. So, that's a great world snapshot that Josh just shared with us. So I also like to quickly welcome a couple other people joining us. Welcome to Chinedu from Miami. It's good to see you. And also welcome to ATR from India. Thanks for joining us the past several days, and I appreciate all the feedback that you're offering as well, all the way from India. So we have a global audience today. So right now it's a golden opportunity. If you guys have any questions about exiting, or maybe I always feel that sharing is caring, guys. So I think it's a super valuable opportunity right now. Maybe someone that's like a 6-figure seller or even a 7-figure seller. They're thinking about exited. They've been approached by potential buyers. Why not share this link with them so they can join live together on the call? I feel like that way it's almost like a mastermind that we can have right now during this. And also welcome to Omar from Bogota, Colombia. Good to see you. Good to see you guys. All right, Josh. So let's take a look at the landscape right now. We talked about the Wild West in e-commerce. There's the opportunity, but many pitfalls. And speaking of pitfalls, we are live. Josh just bounced out of the call, so we'll give him a minute to come back. And if you guys have any questions, let's drop them in the chat first, guys. So meanwhile, I'm curious, how are you guys enjoying the summit so far? If you can let me know. Welcome back, Josh. So I was just asking the audience, how is everyone enjoying the summit so far? I'm curious, what was the number one takeaway you've gotten so far? We've come all the way from day one talking about the mindset of a 7-figure seller, then going to marketing, branding, PPC strategies on day 2. Day 3, we all talked about scaling your business. Day 4 is all about profitability, so you can keep more money in your pockets. And day 5, full circle, we're at the end for exits. So if anyone has any quick takeaways they'd like to share in the chat, I would love to hear it. I would really appreciate that. So Josh, going back to our overall theme, the Wild West of e-commerce, things are changing so quickly, right? I mean, it's like, Amazon, the TOS, etc. I'm curious, in the past 6 months, what are the biggest changes you've seen in the world of e-commerce that we should pay attention to?
I mean, I think for me, I would say it's more like the last year, because when I think about when we started our process of selling, it was roughly January of 2021, maybe late December. So like literally 1 year ago. And the idea of, you know, selling or creating a process to sell your brand was new. It was basically most sellers just responding to aggregators outreach, right? Otherwise, if you're going to have a process to sell your business, you're usually going to list with a broker or an online listing service. And so in the last year, in my space, I feel like there's been a whole lot more like service providers, whether it's a software or a service, actually incorporating a lot of the things we're talking about and you've talked about in the summit, just about this what's happening with the acquisition space. And it's becoming like a group effort now to do what I'm already doing, which is helping educate sellers around that process. But because of this, I think there's an interesting strategy that tech and service providers are coming with. It's like, we want to retain you as a client and we want to educate you. We know eventually you're going to sell. And so I think they're thinking about, how do I retain the relationship with this brand even after you sell? Because we want to make sure we don't just lose our accounts, right? So I would say it's becoming more mainstream. The world knows the service providers that the sellers are exiting. And so that I think is a new thing in the space, where you have others trying to help you gain knowledge that's sort of unrelated. In fact, it's like encouraging someone to leave you as a customer in a way, right? So I think that's the most fascinating thing I've seen. And you know, the process of selling your business, there's a lot of other news saying you shouldn't. You're not gonna achieve the same numbers you could otherwise. And you know, I think I've heard a number of folks now run a process on their own, those that are also becoming referring agents to aggregators. So it's a more specific answer, Gary, and what I'm seeing in my space, because I'm very close to that M&A space on the Amazon side. But certainly other changes like PPC costs is my biggest nightmare. We launched every SKU profitably with our first brand, and in our second brand, we hit $1 million in 9 months in sales, and we lost 200,000. And it's PPC, because we're having to invest so much more to get products out the door. So those are a couple of the quick threats and, you know, states of the business I'm seeing.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, it is becoming more of a group effort. We're seeing a lot more players entering the game to help sellers as they exit. And you hit the nail on the head, right? PPC. I mean, it seems like Amazon has taken away a lot of the other levers that sellers could pull before, in rebates and search find buy. So it seems like now everyone's doubling down on PPC. And we're also seeing from the aggregator side, from what we're hearing, a lot of them don't like their goal isn't short-term profitability, right? I mean, they want to like scale up their brands and, you know, exit in a big portfolio later on. So they're willing to absorb more in PPC budgets. Like, you know, the small sellers like us would have more difficult times. So yeah, I feel like you hit the nail on the head, Josh. And I also see we have a couple of questions in the chat that I'd like to get to. So first off, Chinedu asks, Josh, do you think there's a difference between exiting at 7 figures compared to doing it at 8 figures?
Yeah, there's an extra zero, Gary.
Can't argue with that, right?
Yeah. I mean, yes and no, right? I mean, it's a number, it's an extra number, but I don't think there's a difference in terms of like multiplier or size. I think there are some thresholds between a small business and a large business, but I think you're going to get a higher multiplier if you're in the higher 7 figures. And that's just because you have a more robust business. So for example, getting a 3 times 200,000, you know, versus 5 times 500,000. I don't know, I'm making it up, but you know, the bigger your SDE is, the bigger your profit, the bottom line is, typically you're going to get a higher multiple.
Right. And do you think the buyer pool changes as you cross, you know, from 7 to 8 figures?
Oh yeah. One thing that I'm seeing right now is a number of the top aggregators are exclusively focusing on, when I say exclusively, I mean, if it takes 30 days to do a deal or 60 days to do a deal, they would rather do 1 $10 million deal than one $1 million deal, right? If it takes the same amount of time. And not necessarily it doesn't always correlate to the same amount of time, because there's a sizable difference in the business and there might be more complexities to consider. But I mean, thinking of it that way, like the bar for an aggregator now is like 500,000 is almost too low for an aggregator in profit, right? So Gary, do the quick math on that. If $500,000 in profit and you're doing a 20% margin, what kind of revenue do you have to be doing? What is that?
It's
Or
like
even
times 2.5 million, if my math is correct.
Yeah. So my math is fuzzy now. $5 million at 10% is 500 grand. So $2.5 million in sales at 20%, right? So $2.5 million in sales, $500,000 in profit is too small for some aggregators. When you get down to 250,000 in profit, it's borderline not something maybe the top 30 aggregators are even interested in, because it's opportunity cost. So I think the bigger the business you are, the more offers you're going to get. But the buying pool certainly varies, because there's a number of aggregators have funding that's been disclosed. And so there's a level of credibility there. And it's obviously a proven track record that they've been able to not only fund money, but use the capital that they've been able to achieve and then deploy it into additional acquisitions. So,
yeah, very interesting stuff. All right, excellent. Thanks for that question, Chinedu. Hope that helps. And our next question is from Samuel. Samuel asks, when should you exit? How do you calculate your valuation? For example, if you are currently an 8-figure seller like you were, Gary, I think he means Josh. Josh, when did you decide to exit?
Yeah. So I think there's a bit of a timeline here. We started about 5 years ago when we built our brand from zero. We grew it to 10.3 million in revenue over the course of those 5 years, 5 and some change years. And originally in the beginning, we knew we were going to sell it at some point. So it's important to start, if you're just getting in the game now, over time, it's important to answer this question periodically. What are the current market valuations? Well, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, when we first started getting into it, Gary, the valuations were 2 times your profit to 2.5 times your profit. In the last couple years, even, Thrasio's model was, in the original days, was obviously buy it as low as you can to grow it and eventually sell it for more. And those multiples were significantly lower. Well, with more players coming into the market to buy the brands, there's less brands to buy, which is creating the supply and demand, which is creating a higher valuation. So we're seeing higher valuations right now, certainly than 2 years ago. But so the first thing is just understanding what is your profit. So if you, first thing is you should be running into from cash-based accounting to accrual. If you're running accrual-based accounting, you're going to generate a net profit in your P&L. Your net profit, then you're going to add back things like your salary, your benefits, perhaps some income that is from credit card rewards, right? These are add backs. There's a whole list of them. And so those add backs become now what we call SDE, seller's discretionary earnings. The current multiplier on SDE is roughly 3 to 4 times your SDE right now. If you're smaller than the threshold now of maybe 100,000 in profit or 200,000 in profit, you might be in the low, the high 2s or the low 3s. The bigger you are, the higher the multiple. So if you did 100,000 in profit, the valuation is 300,000 to 400,000, usually cash at close. That means that's the money you're going to get when you sign the deal. And then on top of that, you'll usually get an inventory check and the amount of money that Amazon owes you. A lot of times the aggregators will buy your account balance that's inside the Amazon seller account. So that becomes your cash at close. And then there's an earnout component. So an earnout is going to be what you make after a certain threshold is met. So most earnouts are, if you sell a business in year 1, you'll have something either at 6 months or in year 1. And that will be on top of your cash at close, and there'll be a percentage of profit. And so a quick rule of thumb on that is, if you did $100,000 in profit and next year your new buyer grew it to 200,000 in profit, most of them are going to share 50% of that increase in profit. So if they go from 100 to 200, that's $100,000 increase. They're going to give you half of that. Some of them do it for 1 year after that. Some of them do it for 2 years. I've even seen offers that do earnouts for up to 5 years after the deal's closed. So for us, we knew we were hoping to sell, but we were starting to see the multiples change, and it made a lot more sense to exploring the timing to sell. But it's important that your timing is not about, it's also about market conditions. So in my book, I talk about the market conditions, but also what's happening in your business, what's happening with your energy. Do you have the ability to work through the process of selling your business? Are you sick? Is your health good? Right? So timing can mean a lot of things. So for us, it was having the business growing. And if the business plateaued at all, we knew that could be challenging to earn more of our earnout down the road. So I threw a lot of detail in there. Hopefully it's valuable to some others, but try to answer the best I could, Samuel.
Excellent. So hope that helps, Samuel. And next question is from Omar, who asks, Josh, can you share with us how the process of valuing your business alongside your acquirer? Was it an easy negotiation? Do you rather or prefer a valuation method over the other?
I think valuation, sometimes people throw it out there like a scorecard, like it's an objective scoring system, and really it's not. It's everyone's opinion on how they value your business. I've seen multipliers as high as 8. Well, in some cases, the buyer has discounted the profit, and so if I make 100,000 in profit and I get a 4 times multiple, that's 400,000. But if that buyer says, I'll give you an 8 times multiple, you get excited, but they're now going to decide that your business isn't making 100 grand, that it's only making 50. 8 times 50, excuse me, it's 400,000. It's the same amount of money, right? So there's little tricks in how they do that. But I think for me, the process of valuing was tracking what's on the market right now. The FBA Broker is a good website. They do a weekly and a monthly recap on the open market listings that are available to sort of track what the multipliers are at. So that's helpful to know what the valuations are in the current market. But it's also just talk to buyers.
Sorry, is that Corin Woodmass?
Yep, that's Corin Woodmass. Yep.
Excellent. Yeah, he's an alumni speaker as well, FBA Broker. Yeah, excellent. Yep. Sorry to interrupt. Yep. Please keep going.
No, you're good. Yep. So I started watching, what was going on in the market with him a number of years ago. You can go on sites like Flippa, and get a pretty good sense of what others are selling their brands for. You just have to remember that brands that are doing 500,000 in profit up to $1 million, there's a different level of a sales process. There's definitely a different level of valuation, just because of the complexities.
Excellent. All right. Thanks for that walkthrough. Hope that helps, Omar. And we have some shared takeaways. ATR says, my takeaway, no shortcuts, plan, execute, and be on your toes and keep updating yourself. It's a wild run and survival of the fittest. Well said. And then Samuel recapped some of the takeaways. One is understanding what is your profit, net profit plus add backs is STE. 2 is 3 to 4x your STE threshold higher. 3, earnout component percentage of growth year to year. 4 is timing. Having the business growing plateau will have lower earnout. You've been paying attention, Samuel. Josh, does that sound right?
That's great. 100%. Yeah. And for anyone on the call, and Gary, the offer that I provided was out there, but I do have a book that's coming out soon. It hasn't yet released. I'm dragging my feet to the finish line here, not on purpose, but I'm excited to just get that out there. I think it'll be a great tool. I'm going to give it away. And I think it'll help folks get their head around the process that I ran, what's involved, how they should plan, how they should prepare, both before, during, and after the exit.
Excellent. Yeah, the Aggregator Navigator. I do have a link that you shared with us, Josh. Is that link ready, or should we say, or is there some place that they can follow you, in the meantime?
Yeah, if you go to, I believe it's live now. It's brandedseller.com/book.
Okay. Yep. So is that is that a free book that we're giving away to everybody at the summit? Okay, Josh just bounced again. Let's wait for him to come back. Meanwhile, Josh has literally written the book on exiting your business, how he exited for 8 figures. So I just dropped the link in the chat, guys. If you want to check it out, it's brandedseller.com/book. And Josh has been very generous and transparent with his story. Welcome back, Josh. I'm just highlighting the book and the URL. I just dropped the link in the chat. So yeah, tell us what will people learn from Aggregator Navigator from your book?
At this point, I feel like it's all a second language to me now. So I would like to think that the cool part is, Gary, it's an hour-long book. I'm not a big reader, but even I can sit down and read my own book for an hour. It was great, start to finish. I think for me, it was hard to kind of walk everyone through the experience, like in a story fashion, without getting all the thoughts of the journey out of my head. And most importantly, I think how to find the right buyer, how to negotiate your best deal for you, how to run a process to get multiple offers, how to earn a better leveraged earnout and minimize your downside. These are all tips and tricks that I share in the book. And frankly, if you leave with one nugget on a free book, I think it's a great ROI.
Yeah,
that's my hope.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I mean, and Josh isn't just talking the talk. I mean, he's walking the walk as well, right? So, I mean, everything that he says is literally from his real life. So, I definitely recommend you guys check that out. And we have another question in the chat. And Araceli asks, I came in late in the conversation. What should I be doing if I'm just getting started? And Josh, I feel like, a lot of the sellers that have exited say that you should begin with the end in mind, maybe plan this out a couple years ahead. I'm curious, what would you recommend, sellers like Araceli? Josh, I think you're frozen. Can you see and hear us? Okay, we're experiencing a little technical difficulties, guys. We are live, so we'll wait for Josh to come back. So hopefully he'll be back soon. Oh, here he is. There you go.
What's going on, Gary?
Yeah, there we go. So, all right, can you see and hear us okay, Josh?
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so what would you recommend sellers like Araceli? They're just getting started. I mean, maybe if they want to exit, a few years down the line, is there something they should be doing to plan ahead? What would you recommend?
Yeah, brand registry. It seems like a no-brainer. Make sure that's important, which involves getting a trademark. One of the assets you sell in an asset purchase is the trademark that gets transferred over. And then alongside of that, moving your books from cash-based to accrual. Get with a bookkeeper. There's a couple of great services out there, fairly inexpensive, between $500 to $1,000 a month, can help you move from a cash-based accounting system to accrual. It's really important. You start to recognize your profit a little more realistically than based on your cash coming in and out of the business. Getting your house in order means that's a big nugget right there. Specifically, is going through every single line item on your P&L and understanding your costs. Is there costs that or recurring expenses that you're paying that you forgot about that are automatic charges? It's easy to go in and get on your day-to-day life and forget about those charges. Specifically with ad spend, you can see a number of keywords often, or campaigns or ad groups that have increased ad spend from an ACOS or TACO standpoint. When you're preparing to sell, think of it this way: every profit you make is worth between $3, $4, $5, or $6, right? So if you save $1 in ad spend over the last 12 months, that's like putting $5 or $6 in your pocket, right? If you're going to sell. So in real money is if you cut down $100,000 in spend in advertising waste, that could potentially be another $500,000 in your pocket if you start preparing for sale. Now there's a counterbalance to that. Reduction in good spend could also impact your organic ranking. But reduction in crappy spend, obviously, that should flow right to your bottom line. Those are a couple of quick ones that come off the top.
Yeah, I mean, just to recap, brand registry, get a bookkeeper, make sure your books are in order, and really go, get your house in order, right? Go through every line item on the P&L. And yeah, I've been guilty of that. Sometimes I'm paying for, subscription services I'm no longer using. So I try to go through my credit card statements every couple months to kind of identify the recurring ones that we can cut out. But yeah, that's one that, I got to work on as well. All right. So great question, Araceli. Hope that helps. So let's keep going. We have another question from Ben, who asked, tactical question on net profit. What line items are you subtracting from GP that got you to the 15 to 20% net profit example you gave in your session?
Yeah, so the quick math here is top line revenue is your gross revenue minus returns, and then let's call that net revenue. So net revenue is the amount that typically your business reports or Seller Central payment reports should tell you. And then in your books, you have your income or your revenue by channel, so Amazon US, etc. Below that, you're going to have cost of goods sold. So you're going to have sales minus cost of goods sold, which is the cost as the product is sold when it's shipped, which is important only in accrual. You can't get COGS, a true COGS in cash-based accounting. But inside COGS is inbound shipping. So revenue from Amazon minus cost of goods sold, which is your product costs, minus your inbound freight costs, is your gross profit. So your gross profit then is GM, and GM gross margin then impacts, it could also impact shipping on the outbound side if you do any FBM, but gross margin, you're going to pay FBA fees, PPC fees, refunds, any other promos, outbound shipping sometimes goes there, advertising agencies, additional marketing tools and spend, right? All those line items, many of those that are needed to run your business. Now, there are some optional items in that, like, and some would argue these aren't add backs, but like I run my personal bills out of the business. I added those as add backs because that was income that I paid myself that could flow to the business when I'm out of the business. That becomes an add back. So your profit is next, but then the add backs make it the difference between net profit and seller's discretionary earnings, which in many cases there's an amortization schedule. There's a lot of other technical things around finance, but you have EBITDA. What's the difference between EBITDA and SDE? And usually most sellers don't have any depreciation or amortization. And because they're flow through entities, don't have any taxes either. So most of EBITDA goes away. It's just earnings and then add backs, which makes your seller's discretionary earnings SDE. Hopefully that helps.
Excellent. Some people say like running a successful Amazon business is like having multiple college degrees, because on one hand you got to know sourcing, you got to know marketing, you got to know finance, like all these numbers, right? You got to know how to negotiate. And so I love how and they don't teach you this in school, obviously, right? And things keep changing. So we got people like Josh coming in, giving you guys a master class on all the numbers, and I love that. So Ben, hopefully that helps. And okay, Ben also had a follow-up. Ben says, great, thanks. I was getting a little hung up and went into GP versus NP, namely the last mile shipping to ANX. I'm not sure if it got cut off. So yeah, definitely. All right. Also, I'd like to say a quick thank you to one of our other sponsors, Quiet Light Brokerage. Joe Valley gave an excellent session earlier today on how to sell your business for top dollar. And Joe also helps sellers exit their businesses. And he's actually helped one of our alumni speakers, Mike Jackness, who spoke a couple years ago about his exit, Color It, at this very place at Seven Figure Seller Summit. So Joe actually worked with Mike on his exit a few years ago. So it's kind of interesting to see the other side of the table, right? So, and then in Joe's session, he really talked about like ad backs and STE, and he wrote a book as well. So I'm just impressed that you guys can run these businesses and be writing books. I mean, where do you have the time, guys? But anyways, I wanted to offer this free bonus to everybody joining us. This is from Quiet Light Brokerage, Joe Valley. he wrote a book called The EXITpreneur's Playbook. And Josh, have you heard of this book? Have you had a chance to read the
I've heard of it. Yeah, I
EXITpreneurs?
was tracking it, and
Yeah,
because I'm not a reader, it's just so bad. It hasn't made the Blinkist
audiobook,
list
man.
yet. Gary,
Yeah,
it hasn't
audiobook.
made the
Yeah,
Blinkist list. Blinkit is
yeah.
my top nugget for reading. It's
Wait, what is
basically
this? Blinkist?
Blinkist.com.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
Okay,
basically an audiobook with cliff notes. It's audiobook cliff notes. So,
cool, cool.
it's like 13
Yeah,
minutes to get through a whole book, and everything you need right there
yeah,
summarized, and you can screenshot it and have all the nuggets
yeah,
right there.
yeah, yeah.
But
Definitely. I mean,
Joe's book, I got to get into that.
yeah. And the 80/20 of Joe's book. If you guys read nothing else, go to chapter 16 where he talks about ad backs. He literally breaks down like dozens of different ad back types, from the obvious to the not so obvious, to really, getting deep down in the details. So, people like Ben were asking about, GPNP and some of those details. Maybe you can fish out a couple of nuggets from there that could have that exponential effect, like what Josh said, right? Every $1 you add in your profit, that could be like $67 on your exit. So definitely check out, and it's a free book, guys. So I mean, if you get a chance, 80/20, chapter 16. All right, let's come back to this. We have a couple more questions. Joshua asks, "Hey Josh, how do you manage with 5 kids and time with your wife while building up the big exit?" I'm curious, what's your secret?
It's first knowing your priorities. Like, certainly feeding your family and putting food on the table is a high priority, but it's like anything. And if all you do is work and you make your priority work, it's hard to squeeze in your kids and hard to squeeze in your wife, right? So it took me a long time, Josh, by the way, great name. I had to reverse engineer that, and I had to decide that God and my faith and my wife and my kids, those are my priorities. And the work is something that I do. It's not who I am. So I need to understand how I can make my family win and survive inside the parameters that makes that successful for work, right? So, for example, most of my work days are 9 to 3 now. Morning is a matter of helping getting the kids to school, getting up, cleaning the house, taking care of whatever's going on, any fires. Maybe I'll sit down, drink some coffee, do a little devotional. But then I have my time from like 9 to 3 to get it all done, whatever it is. And I try not to let anything trickle past 3 o'clock. This is a good exception. I'll make an exception every once in a while. And life's about trade-offs. So my wife and I work through those things. But it's an amazing question, because most folks think, how do you squeeze in 5 kids and 3 dogs? Well, I don't look at life like that. I'm actually squeezing in business, unfortunately, which in some cases I learned the hard way, because it was the opposite of for the first 15 years of my career. All I wanted was to be successful, and making money doesn't define success. And so hopefully that helps anyone out there. But it was a real crutch for me, and breaking through is one of the biggest learnings in my 30s.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I love what you said about, kind of turning that question around, right? I mean, how can I fit in my business, having, a family, and right. I mean, in your faith as well. So that's awesome. And Araceli says, "Amen, brother." All right, good stuff. Good stuff. All right. So if you guys have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat for Josh. As we're winding down the last session of the summit, I'm just very appreciative to Josh and to everyone else for coming on the summit. I know, like, obviously, we're cutting into your family time, and everyone else is taking time out of their busy schedule. So just super grateful for you guys coming on to add value to help sellers really build, scale, and exit their businesses. I'm curious, Josh, going through this whole process of exiting, what were some surprises? Like, what surprised you most through this whole process?
I thought the transition was going to be much easier. I don't know if we've talked about this before, but I underestimated it. So, we have a bit of a team, and the team being a little bit, no bigger than, it was maybe between 10 and 12 at the time. And the transition from owning the business to not owning the business, but still servicing it, it took a lot more work because there was redundancy, right? Things that we would do intuitively, we had to almost follow the process as the customer's point of view, right? And so that means, how much inventory do we need to purchase? How do you want to handle this bill? What do we want to do here, right? And so it took a long time because we were doing multi-channel, we were doing international, FBA, obviously. And so I think sellers should be thinking about the sale, but what happens after. And I think it's important to even negotiate like your help, because asking for your time is very important, especially if you have an earnout attached to it. So like, you don't want your paycheck on the future years depending on how much you work. So an earnout is one thing, but you also want to be paid for that transition time. So a couple of those things are very important to really make sure that your team and its entirety is on the same page.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the other speakers on the summit, Josh Elder, he went from a 7 to 5 day job to a mid 7 figure exit. He shared that the process of selling took a good 9 months, and during that time he still had to grow his business. Right, he couldn't take his foot off the gas, and any like additional profit gains were not like affecting the bottom line on his exit, right? So he really had to keep the business going for the sake of the seller, right? So I think that that's one of the surprising things about the transition, similar to what Josh mentioned. So
Yeah, that's right.
excellent. Okay, we have a couple other last questions I'd like to quickly get to. ATR says, "Hi Josh, this is Anupam from India. My question is, what should one plan to sell, a brand or a business? What if a business has multiple brands, some doing well, some do not?"
Yeah, it comes down to anything's for sale if you put a price on it, right? So you have brand A and brand B, and brand A and brand B are in the same legal entity. Well, if you can create a separate profit and loss in the one entity for both brands, then you can sell the brand because it's really intellectual property. Most business transactions in the space are asset purchases. So you're not actually selling the legal entity. You get to keep the legal business. Most folks are going to close it down for potential liability issues that could crop up. So after you close down the business, there's nothing left. The assets have already been sold. So the name of the business has nothing to do with the brand. The brand that's the registered trademark is the asset that goes along with it. So if that makes sense, you got to think about what's next. For us, we started a new legal entity, we started a new brand, and we started a new business in the process while we were selling another one. So we had something to be working on for round two. And so we're doing that now. But I think that's the best way to think about it. What is next for you? And then think in context of selling a brand. Is there a brand that's worth something now that you want to cash in on? Great. Maybe you can deploy that cash into continuing to grow the other brand. I can jump on these questions here if you like, Gary. JA is talking, would you recommend keeping a percent of the business when selling? For example, 10%. And I think it's smart if you can negotiate some equity in the business. At the end of the day, most of these aggregators are going to continue to create value in some way or form for either a short period of time, a medium period of time, or a long period of time, which tends to lead to a group that's going to be going public. And the whole model works by buying low and selling high. So if you buy a business, or if you own a business and you own 10% of $1 million, you have $100,000 in value. If that grows 100% or 500% over the next number of years, so does your percentage. And so there is a chance that that's a good way to do it. You're not going to find probably too many buyers that are wanting to do that. There might be a few that are starting that process now because it is an interesting value proposition. I'll jump to the next one. Josh, when you exited, did you do anything for the staff that helped you along the process? We absolutely did. We had a couple key players that we set up for what we call long-term profit incentive. And so, effectively that translated between one person got 3%, one person got 5% of the total value of the deal, which was multiple six figures in some cases. So yes. And then on the flip side, most of the frontline folks we were working with in the warehouse and in the office got between a few $1,000s and several $1,000s as a thank you. So I think it's important to really reward and thank the people that got you there, regardless if they knew you sell or not, regardless of how you treat it. Some are more transparent than others. For us, it was, hey, we sold the business. We want to thank you for all you've done, and we appreciate you. Here you go. Next question comes in. Do you think you can create another business and do another exit? That's the plan. It's definitely harder round two. We have already grown a brand to 7 figures in sales in the last 9 months. We're coming up a year here in the next couple months, and we haven't turned a profit yet. Our first business was basically profitable in the first month. And so it just attests to the number of increased in costs. But absolutely, with us, we signed a non-compete that we would not create any new products that competed with the products we sold before. And so in some cases, we're using the same suppliers. We're just developing a new product, completely unrelated, completely non-competing against the brands we sold. So I think it's absolutely possible. It's just much harder right now.
Yeah. I think that was a great nugget that you just quickly dropped. In terms of adding new products quickly, a lot of times you can work with the same supplier because you've already, vetted them, you've already built a relationship and trust, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in the same niche, right? So I think that's a quick
100%.
pivot. That's great nugget that you just dropped, Josh. Thank you. All right. So as we close out, Anupam, thank you for asking this question on my behalf. What's the best way to connect with you, Josh, for people that want to learn more?
Yeah, I'm a LinkedIn guy. That's really easy. You can find me on LinkedIn, Josh Dittrich. I have a few things going on. You should see me as branded seller. I also want to encourage you to come by, book a call with me. If you go to brandedseller.com, Gary shared it in the link /book. You can book a name for me, and as well as, you can also get a free book.
Okay. Just getting some spam in the chat, so let me get rid of that. Okay. All right. So yeah, it looks like the internet is a crazy place, guys. But I try to bring the light into the darkness. And thank you, Josh, for coming in today. So again, best way to connect is the same URL that we dropped earlier, brandedseller.com/book. Is that correct?
Yeah, there should be a link on there to book a call with me. Otherwise, there's another link on there, Sell Your Business. You can find and book a time, free to chat. Happy to help in any way I can.
Okay, excellent. I'm just going to drop the link again. I think there was like a missing space, so I'll put that in. So Josh, to close out, if we applied the 80-20 rule, what would you say is your number one recommendation for sellers that are looking to exit successfully?
Don't be in a position to need to sell. The best position to be in to sell is when you don't need to sell. And that's your best negotiating tool. The second best negotiating tool is having more than one buyer, and that getting multiple offers is going to drive significantly the value of your business total exit. And then how you play those cards is the third. So hopefully that helps everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to be on, Gary.
Thank you, Josh. So great value that you shared today. I really appreciate it. So again, to recap, 80-20 rule recommendations from Josh. Don't be in position to need to sell, right? Have more than one buyer, and how you play those cards, right? So
there you go.
Thank you again, Josh, coming from a 8-figure seller, and wishing you all the best in the next business. Hopefully we'll see you around soon. And I highly recommend that you check out Josh's new book, Aggregator, Navigator. It's a quick read, guys. I mean, just 1 hour of your time. I have it on my reading list, so hopefully you guys will too. All right. And some quick thank yous. ATR says, thanks, Josh. We'll definitely connect. And other than that, I just like to quickly thank everybody for attending the 7-Figure Seller Summit. Today is the last day, but I wouldn't say it's the end, because I think it's just the beginning, because we're we've learned so much from real sellers like Josh and the 30 other sellers. And I just like to take a minute to thank all of the speakers, all of these 7-figure sellers, all of these e-commerce experts. You guys are super busy men and women, and I just appreciate you taking the time to help everyone else. I mean, that's what the summit is really all about, to help everybody build, scale, and exit your businesses. So I'm super grateful. Also, quick thank you to my team. I could never have done this without you guys. So we went through like a whole roller coaster. There were like some high highs and there were some headaches, but I just appreciate you guys being alongside on this ride. So thank you to Milan and Mary and Russell, Fong, Pham, and Joseph. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for all the hard work. And also thank you to my family, all the late nights and the early mornings and dealing with my stress. I just thank my wife, Deborah, and also my son, Harrison. I'm going to make sure to take more time with family after the summit. And thank you everyone for joining us. I really, we won the award for favorite Amazon conference because I feel we try to add as much value to help you guys as best as we can with the right speakers like Josh, with the right content, with the right format. So if this is helpful, please let me know in the comments or via email, or if you have any suggestions how we can make this better. We have a high bar that we want to uphold to be the best event out there for you guys. There's a lot of other events out there, so I just appreciate your support and your feedback. All right. And last note is the summit actually is not over yet, because we're going to have a little surprise tomorrow over the weekend. So pay attention to your inboxes. We're going to have something special for you guys. All right. So thank you again, guys. It's been awesome. And some quick thank yous in the chat. Omar says, thanks a lot. Amazing summit. Thank you for joining, Omar. Joshua says, thanks, Josh and Gary. Really appreciate it. Anupam says, really amazing, Gary. Thumbs up. All right. Thank you so much, guys. It's been
Awesome.
great, Josh. I'll let you go. Have a great weekend. Have a great night, everybody. And we will see you guys at the next session. Bye, everyone.